Hello children, in this video, let's learn a new lesson. The title of the lesson is Helen Keller. The lesson Helen Keller is included in Unit 5 of your Marigold English Reader. As the title of the lesson suggests, the lesson is about the world-famous personality named Helen Keller. Helen Keller was born in the year 1880 and she passed away in 1968. Children, your understanding of the lesson will not be complete unless you know the meaning of the words deaf and blind. The word deaf refers to a person who cannot hear, and the word blind refers to a person who cannot see. Helen Keller was deaf and blind. She was an American writer and educator who fought for the cause of the blind. She was also the first blind and deaf person to earn a bachelor degree of arts. Children, the life story of Helen Adams Keller is very inspiring. Here we have a lady who has fought against her physical disabilities to prove that anything is possible if there is a will. Children, I am sure by now you are eager to know more about Helen Keller. And I don't want to hold you back either. So let's read the story of Helen Keller, okay? Here on the screen, you will find a very old picture of baby Helen. Please look at the screen, children, while I read the lesson. The title of the lesson is Helen Keller. It was the summer of 1880. A healthy baby girl was born in a small town in Alabama. Her parents loved her dearly and named her Helen Keller. In this paragraph, it is said that Helen was born in the year 1880 in a small town in Alabama, which is in America. And when Helen was born, she was very healthy. So her parents were happy and they loved her dearly. Here, the word dearly means very much. Helen's parents loved her very much and they gave her the name Helen Keller. Moving on to the second paragraph. But one day, the baby became ill. And day after day, her fever stayed high. Everyone in the family tried to help her to get better, but all they could say was, "There is nothing more we can do. The baby may not live." From the first paragraph, we learned that when Helen Keller was born in the year 1880, she was a healthy child. But when she was 19 months old, she became ill and she did not show any sign of recovery. Day after day, her health deteriorated. Her temperature never came down. Everyone in the family tried to help Helen Keller to get better, but it was of no avail. All their efforts had gone in vain. So finally, they gave up and said there is nothing more that they could do. And they even went on to say that the baby may not live because her condition was critical. Next paragraph. Helen lived, but she was not the same after her illness. Something is very wrong, her mother said. At last, they found out what was wrong. The child could not see or hear. Children, here it is said that though Helen's condition was critical, she recovered from her illness. Here, the word illness means sickness or disease. Okay? But after recovering or recuperating from her sickness, Helen was no longer the same child. She started behaving in a different way. So her mother sensed that there was something wrong with her baby girl. And finally, Helen's parents found out the harsh truth that Helen could neither hear nor see. And this was a sad day for the Keller family. They couldn't bear the fact that their sweet baby girl, who was once healthy, had now become deaf and blind. Moving forward. The baby grew into a little girl. Her parents felt sorry for her. Helen often cried and held on to her mother. "Give the poor child what she wants," her father would say. Here in this paragraph, it is said that growing up into a girl was very difficult for Helen because she could not see or hear. Helen didn't know how to communicate with others. She was at a loss because she could not make her parents understand her thoughts as well as her feelings. And often, out of frustration and helplessness, Helen would hold on to her mother and cry. Helen's father did not want to see her cry in sadness, so he would ask his wife to give the poor child whatever she wanted. Though Helen could not hear or see, she was a bright little girl. Some people thought Helen could not learn anything. Her mother did not agree. "Helen is very smart," she said, and added, "The problem is, how can we reach her? She is locked up inside herself." Children, in this paragraph, we learn that Helen Keller was a bright little girl. Here, the word bright means to be intelligent or clever. So Helen Keller was a bright or intelligent girl, despite being deaf and blind. Seeing Helen, some people remarked that she could never learn anything because she was blind and deaf. But Helen's mother did not accept that. To such people who tried to discourage Helen, she sternly replied that her daughter Helen was very smart and that it's only a matter of time that she learns to communicate with others. And once she has mastered the art of communicating with others, there'll be no stopping her from learning anything. The main problem faced by Helen's parents was that they did not know how to communicate with their blind and deaf daughter. They only knew the spoken language used by people who could hear and see. So they could never express their thoughts or feelings with their daughter. Same was the problem faced by Helen. Being blind and deaf, she had no clue as to how to express her thoughts and feelings with others. No one had trained her in the sign language used by the deaf and blind people. As a result, all her thoughts and feelings remained locked within herself. She could never express herself. So her mother firmly believed that if Helen learned to express her thoughts and feelings with others, there would be no stopping her from learning anything, because she was their bright little girl. Helen began to grow wild. She would not let anyone comb her hair. Her clothes were always dirty. She was often angry. Sometimes she even lay on the floor and kicked her feet. In this paragraph, we get to know how Helen's behavior changes after she became deaf and blind. Being deaf and blind stopped her from communicating with others. She could not express her thoughts and feelings even to the people who were close to her. And this made her frustrated and angry. So after becoming deaf and blind, Helen started showing wild behavior. Here, the expression grow wild means to behave in an uncontrolled manner. Helen's behavior had become so violent that it became difficult for people to control her. Out of anger, she would not let anyone comb her hair. And her clothes always remained dirty because she would not let her mother change her clothes. And she would even lie down on the floor and kick her feet. So this wild behavior displayed by Helen left her parents worried. Her parents thought that they should find a teacher for her. Miss Sullivan, a young teacher, agreed to help Helen to learn to see the world. Miss Sullivan gave Helen a doll. D-O-L-L spells doll. She spelled the words with her fingers into Helen's hand. She made the letters with special hand signs. In order to tame Helen's wild behavior, her parents decided to find a teacher for her. So they approached the Perkins Institution for the Blind with a request for a teacher who was trained to teach deaf and blind children. So the school assigned Miss Anne Sullivan to train Helen Keller. At that time, Anne Sullivan had just graduated from Perkins Institution for the Blind. At a young age, Anne Sullivan contracted an eye infection which left her blind. So she was sent to the Perkins Institution for the Blind for her studies. Here, Anne Sullivan made friends with a girl who was deaf and blind at the same time. So in order to communicate with her friend, Anne Sullivan learned the blind and deaf finger alphabet. But Anne Sullivan was lucky because after several surgeries, she was able to regain partial eyesight. So she was the right person to train the deaf and blind Helen. Children, I also want to show you the deaf-blind manual alphabet. The deaf-blind manual alphabet is also known as the finger spelling. As you can see on the screen, each letter of the alphabet is denoted or represented by a particular sign on the hand. This method is used to spell out words onto the hand of a deaf and blind person. So Miss Sullivan used the deaf-blind manual alphabet in order to teach Helen different words. Children, I also want you to watch this short video so that you can understand how different letters of the alphabet are formed using various hand signs. Now let's get back to the lesson, children. From this paragraph, we infer that a new teacher was appointed for Helen Keller, and her name was Miss Sullivan. Miss Sullivan was a teacher who was trained in the deaf-blind finger alphabet. So she started teaching different words to Helen by using the deaf-blind finger alphabet. One day, she gave a doll to Helen and she spelled the word D-O-L-L into Helen's hand using special hand signs. Children, these hand signs are used by people who are deaf and blind in order to communicate. So Miss Sullivan started teaching Helen the sign language of the deaf-blind people so that she could teach her many words and thereby understand the things around her. Okay? Moving on to the next paragraph. Helen copied her teacher and spelled D-O-L-L too, but she did not understand what she was doing. Helen liked Miss Sullivan. She was strict but kind. She spelled lot of words for Helen on her hand, day and night, to make Helen understand. So when Miss Sullivan tried to spell the word doll onto the hand of Helen, Helen also copied the same. But she did not understand what she was doing. She just copied her teacher. So this was just a beginning. Miss Sullivan was very strict with Helen when it came to learning words. She would spell many words on Helen's hand day and night in order to make her understand the things around her. At the same time, Miss Sullivan was very kind and understanding. She understood that it would take some time for Helen to learn new letters and words. Though it was difficult for Miss Sullivan to handle a wild kid like Helen, she never gave up hope. She was always there with Helen, trying to teach her new words day and night. So Helen liked her teacher very much. Moving further, one day, her teacher made Helen put her hand into running water. Then she spelled W-A-T-E-R. Suddenly, Helen understood that W-A-T-E-R meant something wet, running over her hand. So all these days when Miss Sullivan tried to teach Helen different words, She did not understand what she was doing. She was just copying what Miss Sullivan had taught her. But one day came a breakthrough. Her teacher put her hand into running water, and then she finger-spelled the word water. And suddenly Helen understood that water meant something wet running over her hand. So you can see on the screen how Helen tries to spell water on Miss Sullivan's hands. And this makes Anne Sullivan happy. She understood that words were the most important things in the world. Words would tell her everything she wanted to know. Initially, Helen had no clue as to what Miss Sullivan was trying to spell on her fingers. She used to just copy her teacher. But after many days, Helen could master the deaf-blind finger alphabet. She then realized that words were the most important things in the world because learning words would make her understand her surroundings. So far, her world was dark. She had no knowledge about the things around her. Due to Miss Sullivan's constant effort, Helen was able to learn many words. And finally, Helen was able to find a way to express her thoughts and feelings. So this was a big relief for Helen. Starting with words, Keller went on to learn how to read, write, and speak. And with Miss Sullivan's assistance, she attended the Radcliffe College and graduated with honors in 1904. Soon Helen became a public speaker and she fought for the cause of the blind people. In the year 1902, she published her autobiography, The Story of My Life. Children, if possible, try to buy this autobiography of Helen Keller and read it. And one more thing I wanted to add here, children. Miss Sullivan continued her stay with Helen till her death. Miss Sullivan was not just a teacher to Keller, but a role model, mentor, friend, and a mother figure. So Helen loved her dearly. Children, with this we have completed this lesson. I hope you enjoyed the story of Helen Keller and her teacher. Now, let's discuss the new words of this lesson. The first difficult word given in the lesson is dearly, and it means very much or greatly. Here on the screen, you will find a mother who loves her son dearly. Using the word dearly, I have framed the sentence, mothers love their kids dearly. Our next new word is illness, and it means a disease or sickness. Here on the screen, you will find a doctor trying to diagnose the kid's illness or disease. With the word illness, I have framed the sentence, doctors help us to cure our illness. The third new word included in this lesson is agreed, and it means to decide. Here is a picture of some friends sitting together and discussing. And after discussing, the boys agreed to watch a movie. The next difficult word is important, and it means most essential or valuable. Here is a boy who is studying hard in order to obtain good marks because he knows that hard work is important to achieve success. So children, we have covered the new words, their meanings and usage. Now let's discuss the textual exercises of the lesson Helen Keller. The first textual exercise given here is reading is fun. Here you have got 6 questions. Let's discuss these questions one by one, okay? The first question here is, something is wrong, said Helen's mother. What was wrong with Helen? Children, from the lesson we learned that after Helen's illness, she could not hear or see. So this is what was wrong with Helen. We can frame our answer. Helen could not see or hear after her illness. Our second question here is, although Helen could not hear or see, what kind of a girl was she? This again is a simple question to answer, children. You all know the answer for this question, which is Helen was a bright girl despite being deaf and blind. Isn't it? So we can write down our answer. Although Helen could not see or hear after her illness, she was smart or bright. Okay? Moving on to our third question. Who agreed to help Helen? Here the answer is Miss Sullivan, Helen's teacher, agreed to help Helen. The fourth question given here is, how did Miss Sullivan help Helen? Children, we all know that Miss Sullivan would spell a lot of words on Helen's hand in order to make her understand the things that were around her. So this is how Miss Sullivan had helped Helen. So we can write down the answer. Miss Sullivan spelt a lot of words on Helen's hand to make her understand the things around her. This is how she helped Helen. Moving on to the fifth question. What did Helen learn when the teacher put her hand in running water? When Miss Sullivan put Helen's hand in running water, Helen learned to spell the word water. And she also understood that the word water meant something wet running over her hand. So our answer is, when the teacher put her hand in running water, Helen learned to spell the word water. She also understood that the word water meant something wet running over her hand. Now we are in the last question. What was the most important thing that Helen finally understood? For the deaf and blind Helen, words were the most important thing in the world. So here is the answer, children. Helen finally understood that words were the most important thing in the world, as they helped her to understand the world around her. So we have covered all the questions included in this section. Reading is fun. Moving forward, we have the next textual exercise, which is Let's Talk. Children, in this exercise, you do not have to write down anything. There are 6 points given here for us to discuss. Okay, so just listen to me carefully as I read these points one by one. Number 1, using sign language, make these letters with your hand. C-H-E-K. Children, here is the deaf-blind finger alphabet. Now looking at this alphabet, you will have to make letters C, H, E and K. Okay, this finger alphabet is also given in page number 85 and 86 of your English textbook. Children, you can also learn the sign language for the entire alphabet, so that next time you see somebody who is deaf and blind, you will be able to communicate with them and they will feel happy. Okay. Number 2, spell these words through hand signs. So children, there are 2 words given here for you to spell through hand signs. Okay. So these are the hand signs for spelling the word Helen, and these are the hand signs for spelling the word was. Okay. The next question we have here is, how do people who cannot see read? Children, we have learned that people who are blind and deaf use the blind-deaf finger alphabet in order to communicate, whereas people who cannot see read using the Braille system of writing. That is, by touching or running their finger through the raised dots. Look here, children, this is the Braille alphabet. Each rectangle that is shown here is a cell, and the number and position of the raised dots represent each letter of the alphabet. Now here on the screen, you will find how a person tries to read the Braille script by running his or her finger through the raised dots. Children, this is a book written in Braille script. So this is how an actual book written in Braille looks like. Okay? The next question given for us to discuss is, what is the name of the script for children who cannot see called? Children, just now you have seen how blind people read using the Braille script. So in order to read something written in Braille, they run their finger through the raised dots. And Louis Braille was the founder of the Braille script. Okay? Moving forward, the next question is, how do you think you can help children who cannot see? Children, the best thing that we can do to children who cannot see is by giving them a sense of belongingness. You can maybe learn the deaf-blind finger alphabet as well as the Braille script so that next time you meet someone who is deaf and blind, you can communicate with them. So far, we have never learned the sign language, isn't it? As a result, whenever we come across somebody who is blind and deaf, we could never communicate with them. And this leaves a sense of loneliness in such children. So by doing this, we will be able to communicate with them and spend some quality time with them. Okay? So we can help children who cannot see by spending some time with them, learning their script, and communicate with them so that they do not feel lonely. Okay, children? Now, the sixth point given here is, look at the signs for the letters of the alphabet. Children, in page number 85 and 86 of your English textbook, the deaf-blind finger alphabet is given. You can go through this alphabet and learn the signs, okay? Children, let's now discuss the next textual exercise, which is let's write. Match the two parts of sentences given under column A and B. Add but to join the two parts and write complete sentences. This is a match the following exercise, children. Here you will have to match the sentences given in column A with the most suitable sentences given in column B. And then join these two parts of the sentences using the word but. Okay, your answers should be written in the space provided in your textbook. Okay, children? Now let's discuss this exercise. The first sentence is, Helen lived after her illness. Children, now quickly go through the sentences that are given in column B. So the sentence, Helen lived after her illness, matches with the sentence, she could not hear or see. Now these two parts of the sentences should be joined using the word but. Okay? And the answer must be written down like this, children. Helen lived after her illness is given in column A, whereas she could not hear or see is given in column B. And these two parts are joined using the word but. Moving on to the second sentence, she could not see or hear. Come on, children, quickly try to find out its suitable match. Very good. She could not see or hear matches with the sentence, but she was very intelligent. And these two parts of the sentence can be joined together using the word but. So this is how you need to write it down, children. Let's try doing the third one. People thought that she could not learn anything. Here, the most suitable answer for this is, but her mother thought she could not learn. Fourth one, Helen copied the words, but she did not understand what she was doing. The last one here is, Miss Sullivan was strict. And the sentence that matches with it is, but she was kind to Helen. So children, now we have matched the sentences or given in column A with those given in column B. Now you will have to write down your sentences in the space provided in your textbook. The first one is already done for you, children. Children, it's time for our next textual exercise, team time. Read the following sentences. Her clothes were always dirty. She was often angry. Sometimes she lay on the floor. Her parents never scolded her. Ask yourself the following questions. Put a tick under the right column. This is a very interesting activity, children. But before we do this, let's quickly revise adverbs. Okay? Adverbs are words that describe a verb or an adjective. Let's first see what verbs are. Okay? Come on, children, let's go to the monkey park. Here, you will see a monkey swinging. So the monkey is swinging. We had learned that a word that talks about any action is called a verb. So here, the word swinging is a verb. Now let's check out what this monkey is doing. The monkey is jumping. So the word that describes the action done by this monkey is jumping, isn't it? So the word jumping is the verb here. Now look here, children. What are these monkeys doing? They are dancing. So the word dancing describes the action done by the monkeys. So what is a verb, children? A verb is a word that describes an action. So now you know what a verb is. Children, let's now find out what adverbs are. Look here, children. The monkey is swinging. Here the word swinging is the verb. If I add the word fast to this sentence, it becomes the monkey is swinging fast. Here the word fast describes the verb swinging. So an adverb is a word that describes a verb. So here we get to know how the monkey is swinging. And the answer is the monkey is swinging fast. So the word fast is the adverb here. So adverbs are words that tell us more about a verb. Now look here, children. There is another monkey swinging. How is he swinging? He is swinging slowly. The action word or the verb here is swinging, and the word slowly describes how the monkey is swinging, isn't it? So the word slowly is the adverb here because it tells us more about the verb as to how the monkey is swinging, whether he is swinging fast or slow. Okay? Now look at these monkeys who are dancing, children. These monkeys are dancing nicely, isn't it? Here, the action word is dancing, so we call it the verb. And the word nicely describes the verb dancing. So here we get to know how the monkeys are dancing. They are dancing nicely. So the word nicely is the adverb here. Okay? So children, adverbs are words that tell us more about a verb. Or we can also say that adverbs are words that describe a verb. Okay? Children, sometimes adverbs also describe an adjective. Okay? Children, adverbs often help us answer the questions how, when, where, and how often. Look here, children. Here the kids are playing. So we can write down, the kids are playing quietly. In this sentence, the action word or the verb is playing. And by asking the question how to the verb, we get the adverb, which is quietly. Playing how? Playing quietly. Okay? So here, the word quietly is the adverb because it describes the verb playing. We can also write down another sentence. The kids are playing outside. In this sentence, the word playing is the verb, and by asking the question playing where, you get the adverb outside. Here, the word outside describes the verb playing. So the adverb here is the word outside. Okay? Here is a third sentence for you, children. The kids are playing now. If you ask the question when to the verb playing, you get the answer now. Playing when? The kids are playing now. Here, the word now describes the verb playing. So the word now is the adverb here. Now pay attention to this sentence, children. The kids play every day. Here, the verb is play. And by asking the question how often to the verb, we get the adverb every day. How often do the kids play? The kids play every day. So the word everyday describes the verb play. And the adverb here is every day. So children, we can conclude that adverbs are words that tell us more about the verb. And they often answer the question how, where, when, and how often. Okay, let's now get back to the textual exercise, children. Read the following sentences. Her clothes were always dirty. She was often angry. Sometimes she lay on the floor. Her parents never scolded her. Children, the words that are highlighted here are adverbs. In the first sentence, the word always means all the time. The word often in the second sentence, she was often angry, means many a time or many times. In the third sentence, sometimes she lay on the floor. The word sometimes means from time to time. And in the last sentence, her parents never scolded her. The word never means not at all or not even once. So children, you now know the meaning of each of these adverbs. These adverbs are called adverbs of frequency because they show how often some things happen. Now remember these adverbs and their meanings, children, in order to do the next exercise. Ask yourself the following questions. Put a tick under the right column. So here some questions are given for you to answer. All you need to do is read these questions and then put a tick mark against the most suitable answer. Okay? So the first question given here is, how often do you obey your parents? Children, you all obey your parents, isn't it? So put a tick mark in the first box. From here on, I'll just read the questions, children. You can decide your answer and put a tick mark against the right box. Okay? The second question is, how often do you visit your grandparents? It can be always, often, sometimes, or never. The third question given here is, how often do you fight with your brother or sister? The fourth question given here is, how often do you help others? The fifth question given here is, how often do you throw waste in the dustbin? The next question given here is, how often do you switch off the lights when you go out of the room? The next question is, how often do you leave the tap on while brushing your teeth? And the last question is, how often do you tear pages from your notebook? Children, I believe you will be honest in doing this exercise. The next textual exercise included in your lesson is, let's make something. From newspapers or old magazines, collect stories, reports of courageous children. Draw pictures of the story and then talk about the stories. This is a fun activity, children. Try to collect stories or reports of courageous children from newspapers or some old magazines. Okay, and then draw pictures of the stories in a notebook. And then you can talk about these stories. Going forward, we have a poem here, children. The title of the poem is Pretty Peep. Children, this poem is also a riddle. So listen to me carefully as I read this poem to you. I had a little sister, they called her Pretty Peep. She wades in the waters deep, deep, deep. She climbs up the mountains high, high, high. My pretty little sister, she has just one eye. Who is Pretty Peep? Here, Pretty Peep is a star. Children, here we have completed the lesson Helen Keller and its textual exercises. Hope you liked the story of Helen Keller. So thank you for your time, children. Bye-bye and have a great day.